we're gonna dive right in. How you feel going into the camp, and tell us how you've been training and how that's going.
This camp is going pretty good. The reason why is I was able to take some time off from my last fight, and it's something I haven't been able to do in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since I came out of retirement, and I think that's super important because if you're constantly battling, constantly breaking down your body, mentally and physically, it just takes a toll on your body. So I took, I would say, before I start going super hard in this camp, about 10 weeks off of just light training and just spending time with my family to mentally prepare myself for this grueling 8 to 10 week camp. So, I'm super excited to start this camp, and I'm ready for September 21st.
Most definitely, as they always say, recovery is just as important as training. So now you're fighting for the featherweight title, the Ring of Combat. What does that mean to you to be fighting for this title and an opportunity like this?
I mean, it's an awesome opportunity, especially against a guy named Billy Aggio. He's no slouch, neither am I. So I'm sure when we both step into that cage, we're both going to be ready, bringing fireworks, and we're not going to disappoint anybody out there.
And you have an impressive record. I believe it's 27-8.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned coming out of retirement. One, why did you go into retirement, and why did you decide to come out of retirement?
You know what? I have two little kids. I bought a house. It was just a lot of politics in the sport was really getting to me. It wasn't fun anymore. It really wasn't. I was fighting for the wrong reasons, and I couldn't really get a full fight camp, focus wise. So I figured, hey, let's step away, possibly retire. And I took about 10 months off, roughly. And I sat down with my wife one time, and I was like, let's just do it again. I'm not burned out. This is the time I needed to, I guess, refocus, restructure my timing, because I'm sure just like any other parent knows, time flies with your kids, and I don't want to miss any moment that I can. So I really had to time things out perfectly. I work a full-time job. I see my kids, and then I go train. They don't see me until next morning sometimes.
Definitely, yeah, the life moves fast, that's for sure. Especially while you're having fun.
Yeah.
Now, tell us what you've added to training camp for this fight, for this title shot, and what are some challenges that your opponent presents to you that you believe you need to overcome to get the victory.
I've had it. I mean, obviously, we know it's two different clashes of styles. The base, or not basic, but the classic Muay Thai fighter versus the grappler. I mean, let's not sleep on Billy's jiu-jitsu game. It's pretty good. It's legit. But so is mine, and so is my wrestling. So for this camp, I've brought in several longer fighters to give me different looks, different variations, and it's definitely going to help. It's going to help me get my inside game and basically persevere where I need to go in this fight.
And I keep hearing when I mention your name to Eric Colwell, owner of My MMA News. He's like, right away, he's like, Scott's a great dude. He's like, you'll have fun doing the interview with him. But the thing that keeps popping up with you is you're the best unsigned, like in the big three promotions, best unsigned featherweight there is right now on the East Coast. One, do you feel that you are the best unsigned featherweight? And what do you want to do to make that push to get signed by one of the big three promotions? And by big three, I mean PFL, Bellator, and UFC.
Well, I believe 100% wholeheartedly that I am the best unsigned UFC fighter on the East Coast and probably, in the country at my weight class. But my goal is to, this title fight. This title fight should dictate what happens next. It's never etched in stone. There's nothing, promising that this fight will get me anywhere. But I'm going to train my balls off to make sure that's a statement.
Now, what do you do for fun outside of training? I assume you have a full-time job as well as training, being that you have a family, wife, and kids. What do you do as a full-time job, and then how do you balance that in full-time training?
It's crazy because when you become a parent, life changes. I always try to do some fun stuff, before the kids and whatnot. Yeah, after fights, go out partying, you go hang out with
Yep.
friends, do some crazy stuff. But now it's like I, I don't live a boring life. I mean, I still do stuff like I'll go skydiving, I'll go out in the lake, normal stuff like well, skydiving isn't too normal, but
I'm not
yeah,
jumping
I
out of a
still
perfectly
like
good
to.
airplane.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that's totally my wife's idea. I turned 30 and I did some crazy stuff. I ran with the bulls. I skydived for the first time. It's just bucket list stuff. But now it's just honestly, it's spending time. I rather, uh, I kind of built my house to where I love it. I have a nice little entertainment spot outside and in here, so I do a lot of family stuff here. So after fights, this is where we get. We come here, we cook out, and that's what I do for fun, and I enjoy it.
And I see you have some. Are those your gloves and belts in the back or up on the wall?
Yeah, yeah. I actually have all my belts. It's almost like a little man cave thing.
Awesome.
I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, very nice. That's
All the
awesome.
belts that I accumulated over the past. It's something to. What's neat is I built this so I can come down here. It's my basement, and so I can just reminisce and
Hmm.
look where I started from. And this gives me the motivation. And if I need something more, uh, need I say anymore? This is it.
And I gotta ask, what's more of adrenaline rush, stepping into the cage or running with the bulls?
Uh, well, they're they're both up there. Running with the Bulls, I had no idea what to anticipate, and it was pretty neat. It was a quarter-mile run, and it wasn't as bad as I thought, but it
Hmm.
was pretty neat.
Where'd you do that in Pennsylvania?
I did in Pennsylvania. It's called or a company called the Great Bull Run.
Okay.
They do it once a year, but they'll go to like Pennsylvania. I think it was Pine Grove. They'll go to Massachusetts. A couple locations, and they make they do some awesome stuff. They do the tomato tossing to,
Oh, awesome.
what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. So
yeah.
get hundreds of thousands of tomatoes. And it's basically like a big dodgeball fight.
That's awesome. That sounds pretty interesting. Now, like we're talking about getting into the UFC. What are your goals for when you get in there? Like you're 27-8 right now. You win. You're 28-8. There's a few other veterans I know in the sport that have a record like that and then get into the UFC and they're doing well. Jared Mishkat was one of them at middleweight. What are your goals once you get in there? And obviously, you want to get to the top, but what do you have to do to continue to climb that ladder?
I mean, I guess everybody wants to make a name. They want to make a little bit of money. They want to
Mm-hmm.
make a name for themselves, and of course, the end result is getting that belt. I feel like with the proper tools and training and just the right plan, I can make it there. But at the end of the day, let's have fun doing this until it's not fun anymore. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm happy and I'm training and I'm healthy and my family's healthy, that's my goal. And that's going to make me fight a lot harder, a lot better, and it's just going to make life easier.
Now, then since you're out of retirement, are you still training with the same gym? And I assume that you are happy again. You kind of found that boost of motivation to get back in the ring of the cage. Just tell us a little bit about the gym you're at.
I mean, I believe every fighter is probably training at a couple different gyms.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing. I'm training a lot out of two different gyms. It's Finishers and 10th Planet
Okay.
with JM and Zach. They're the owners. And then I train at Pure MMA in New Jersey, Rockaway, with Andy Main.
Okay.
He has actually all three of them have been an awesome attribute to my fight camps. And then out of Andy's gym, we have Kevin Mulhall, who used to be a referee,
Mm-hmm.
and he refed a couple times in the UFC, but he has incredible Muay Thai skills. So, I've been using him for my stand-up.
Yeah, he goes. I believe he goes overseas quite often, right? Training
Yes.
and participating overseas.
Yeah, the type of people he has trained with, it will blow your mind. He would just tell me stories upon stories, and it's like, you really did that? it's just like he's been everywhere with everyone, so it's awesome.
That's awesome. Now, what part of your game do you feel is elevated since your last fight, and what do you believe that your opponent won't be able to handle when you're inside the cage?
Well, I believe my stand up has definitely elevated, um, but one thing that probably no fighter has been able to handle or I guess keep up with is my wrestling. My constant pressure and just my heart. You can't teach heart.
Hmm.
And I've been ever since I've been back from these fight or my retirement. I've been in some wars, and it's really tested my will, my heart, and if I was going to quit, and it hasn't. I haven't broken yet. So that is my game. Is whatever I lack in, I'll make up with conditioning, strength, mental ability, and just heart. It's like I'm gonna bring you in deep waters. And if you look at any of my fights, it's true.
Now, when you're talking about heart inside the cage, and I agree with you, is something that you can't really create over time. Either you have it or you don't. But when you're in there and you need that heart at that moment when you're being tested, does anything run through your mind? Does something like also jump into your head and like, you know what? Let me just keep pushing, just a little bit more. I just keep pushing. Like, what pops through your head?
I think exactly what you just described. Like you have to mentally coach yourself sometimes or pump yourself up. And you're in a bad situation or jam. You just got to find a way. I've wrestled all my life. I've wrestled some of the top guys in the country. For instance, I wrestled Frankie Edgar in college, and we've had some wars. We went 3 times. He beat me twice, and I beat him once. But
Hmm.
every single time, it was back and forth. But we've been in so many scrambles. You just have to find a way to win, and that it's just you just got to dig deep. Yeah, I can't explain it, but if you've been in that situation, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm a huge fan of wrestling, but where did you wrestle again in college?
I went to Bloomsburg for a year.
Okay.
I wrestled Frankie Edgar when he was in Clarion, and then I transferred to East Stroudsburg University.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, and yeah, wrestling is a different animal. I definitely believe that. And how much of wrestling played into a role when you're cutting weight? Because so many guys I see where they struggle, where they never really participated in a sport where you have to cut weight before, and then you got wrestlers who just kind of step in and it's like second nature for them.
It's going back when I was young, it just started then. Discipline was the biggest thing, but it wasn't until I would say roughly my first professional fight when I actually started to cut weight properly. There's a guy who's actually, I believe, the UFC brought him on, and I had him for maybe 3 or 4 years prior to that. Is George Lockhart.
Okay.
He's a nutritionist for, I believe Bones Jones. I saw Paul Felder, Conor McGregor. They're all using this
Hmm.
guy, and I've had him since I basically started my career, and he's the main reason that I'm not starving myself. I have proper nutrition, and I'm also rehydrating the right way. So it's the first few times was a struggle because I would have to believe in him. He would tell me to drink 2, 3 gallons of water the week of weight cut. And I'm like, I'm 14, 15 over. He's like, just drink it. Just listen to me. It has everything down to a science. It's crazy. So once you start believing in his philosophy and his lesson, his plans, that's one less thing that I have to worry about in a fight camp. I never have to worry about my weight cuts or my nutrition.
Which is huge and kind of brings me into my next question. Someone who's been in well over 30 fights, what is like your thoughts on CTE and that's big in football right now, but it's very quiet in combat sports between boxing, MMA, and I know the UFC, Dana White, they donate like $1 million to the foundation to research it, but not many fighters are really talking a whole lot about it. What are your thoughts on that? For someone who you've had a lot of fights and you mentioned a lot of wars too.
I apologize. Can you repeat what you broke out
Oh, sorry.
when you asked?
I was asking your thoughts on CTE and So you've been in a lot of fights, a lot of wars, and what are your thoughts on that, and how it will affect you long term?
That's what's CTE.
That's with the brain trauma where in football they believe it's because
So
of
it's like second impact syndrome and stuff
yes.
like that. Well, obviously there's going to be, I guess, some results or some things down the line.
Hmm.
It's, I guess that's one thing we don't look at. We feel like we're young, we're invincible as fighters. Um, but I think if you look at guys like Justin Gaethje or
Hmm.
Robbie Lawler, or the guys that just go into wars, it's like sometimes that's hard to watch because
Yeah.
it's like you're taking years off of your life. And knock on wood, but I've been really fortunate in my career to take very, very few knocks in my life or my career. That most of it has been grappling, most of it's been ground and pound, and most of it's been me doing it to somebody else.
Hmm.
It's like it's always in the back of your head. You can't be naive to it, but I get it's just I think it's important for the UFC to be conscious of this.
Now I'm sure you're a fan of MMA, UFC, watching Bellator and all the big promotions. Um, are there any fighters that you're big fans of? If so, why are you a fan of them? And yeah, who are you big into watching?
One of my favorite fighters, and it's because I'm biased. I've trained with him several times. Is Dominic Cruz.
Awesome.
Uh, just sitting down and talking with him for the first time, this guy is so intelligent. His fight IQ is through the roof, um, and I've never met anybody with a harder work ethic than him. It's if his coach Eric DeFurio would not
Hmm.
tell him to come in, he would come in. You know what I mean? But it's just getting knowledge from him uh, is hands down one of the best I've ever had in my life. And and then he puts it out there in the ring. It's like
Hmm.
you know that his last fight with Cody Garbrandt was a tough one, but he's never made excuses for a loss. It's always it wasn't my day. I got beat up by a better guy, and that
Hmm.
was it. There's no excuses. My hand. That guy trains with broken bones and pulled ligaments and torn ligaments and doesn't complain. I've seen it firsthand, and there's not too many people like that. Not too many people finding ways out of a fight before the fight happens, and he doesn't do that.
Now,
So that's why I respect him a lot.
most definitely, yeah, he's definitely a talented guy, and I like the fact that you mentioned his fight IQ because that's sometimes something that a lot of people just kind of forget about is um, how much thinking and mentality, a mental aspect goes into fighting. Now, my other question would be, who would you want to fight if you get into the UFC? Is there anyone in particular that you think you would want to fight? Because the featherweight division is one of the deepest divisions. I believe it's over 110 fighters in the division. Um, that's a lot of fighters. I personally think they should cut half the divisions down. But who would you want to fight? Anyone in particular you want to get into right away with?
Man, I mean, like you said, there's a long list. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a dream fight would be. I understand it would take some time. Hey, Frankie Edgar, let's go for a fourth round. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that guy's a legend. I have the utmost respect for him, but I would love to see what our fight ability would be in the ring. Um, I mean, you have so many tough guys in the UFC at 145 pounds. But that's probably one of the top guys I would love to.
Awesome. And what can fans expect from you on the 21st at Ring of Combat inside the cage?
Well, I get this question a lot. A lot of my fans are, have you checked up on this guy? Have you scouted him out? And my answer all the time. So when I first started my career, I always used to check the film on people and like obsess about it. I might look at a film once or twice, see what he's good at,
Mm-hmm.
but then that's it because I started changing my game plan. My game plan is I'm going to make him change his. There's no reason why I should change my game plan and for something that he's good at. I had to be cognitive about it, but I'm always gonna dictate my aggressiveness and what I do best. So for our fans or my fans, it's going to be nothing but fireworks. And we're going to come out and we're going to show or display the best ability that we can in fighting. And it's going to be a heck of a fight. It really is. Um, if I have to predict the fight, I mean, obviously, I see myself winning. I see myself breaking him. I don't see myself pushing him over, not at all. But I know that we train for 5, 10, 15 rounds. It doesn't matter. That's one thing you'll never see. You'll never see Scott Heckman tired, and that's another thing that breaks people. So you're going to see an action-packed fight, and it's going to be a war.
Awesome. I'm excited to watch. I'm definitely going to tune in for it. Real quick, sponsor recognition. Everyone go to PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use my code CCMMA. Get 10% off all products. It's excellent stuff. It definitely does the job. Great for recovery for athletes. So check it out. PureSpectrumCBD.com. CCMMA, 10% off. Scott, before we wrap it up with you, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to recognize?
I'll just thank my team, all the guys at Pure MMA, all the guys at Finishers, Craig Merrick at Made, my strength conditioning coach, and then I guess a couple sponsors that always have been there for me. Sky's the Limit, Beth Hanover. I also have Multisport Fitness and the Hillis Group. They've always had my back and continue to do so.
Awesome. Well, Scott, I appreciate you taking the time, sitting here chatting with me. Wish you the best of luck on the 21st and capture that title.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.